Hey everyone, I wanted to show you how I built this last round of retail display cabinets for my products out of plywood. I used Baltic Birch. It's my favorite plywood to use. It's a 1/2 inch thick and has 9-plies, so it's really rigid and really light, and I just like it. It comes in a 5 foot by 5 foot sheet, so figuring out how you're going to nest all your cuts is a little bit different than if you have a 4x8 sheet, which is typical here in the US. This comes from the Baltics. And so that's what they do over there. I have a background in graphic design, so often I'll draw what I want to make, especially I'm making several of them like this in Adobe Illustrator. And that allows me to nest the pieces for a real efficient use of wood. And it also allows me to see where my straight through cuts are going to be, so I don't have any strange table saw cuts. And as you can see, I've nested 2 complete displays with 5 shelves each on this one sheet of 5 foot by 5 foot Baltic birch. And so I'm going to go through the steps of how I mass produce these. I think I made 20 displays in this build. And so that's 40 sides and it's 100 shelves, all out of 5 foot by 5 foot sheets like this of this 1/2 inch 9-ply Baltic birch. So, after I had that Illustrator drawing completed, I printed it out and it gave me a really good roadmap for how to proceed and not waste very much wood. And that's how I know what to do first, second, and third when it comes to chopping these sheets down and keeping them organized. So this is just a lot of table saw work right now, getting, like I say, mass producing these. You can make a whole bunch at once and not much more time than you can make just a few. And key is just kind of having your shop set up to where you can mass produce like this. Right now I just screwed a backer board into the shelf, or into the bench rather, over there, so I know my lengths are all going to be exactly the same for chopping the tops off these sides. And then I'll dog ear each of the fronts to give them a 45-degree angle right there. Just makes it look nicer. And I don't recommend necessarily cutting on a table saw in this fashion, where you notice how the piece is narrower than it is wide as I'm sliding it through there. Generally, you want the distance between your saw blade and your fence to be, you want the length of your piece to be at least that wide. But if you go really, really slow with lightweight wood like this and take your time, then you just have to be careful. You can also use a cross-cut sled for something like that. Now I'm going to take this combination blade off the table saw and install a dado head, because I want these shelves to be grooved or sitting in grooves called dados in each of the sides for extra strength. It adds a tremendous amount of strength if you can use some joinery like this on your shelves, but it does take using a dado head to cut these grooves in one by one like this. And there's 5 grooves to cut on every single one of the 40 sides that I have here. So again, it's just kind of mass production. And then the sanding. This is the part that just takes a long time, but is very important to me. Raw plywood always has a lot of, imperfections in the grain and kind of splintery structure on the sides. So it's worth it to spend a couple hours. In this case, I put a breather on just because several hours of sanding can have some consequences and make you cough a bunch and stuff like that. So anyway, I think I'm using 220 grit here just to get a good, nice polished front, sides, and back on every one of the shelves and every one of the sides. It's worth the time. And now, since we did that joinery, since we did those dadoed grooves you can see there, assembly is really pretty easy. These are all exactly the same, so this goes pretty fast. I do like to actually mark on the outside of the cabinet 2 little dots for exactly where I'm going to pin the shelves to the sides with staples. I don't want to guess on that and miss. And since I marked these on all these displays that I made, I didn't miss any of them. You can see there I know exactly where to use my air nailer and put that little 5/8 inch wood staple in the side to hold those in while they're gluing up. That's what I'm doing here, is marking each exact space where I want to hit that. I use some good wood glue, and and then just pin them in. Cabinet itself squares itself as these shelves go into the joints, and then you just got to let them dry and dust them off really well before the next step, because everything's dusty at this point. And once they're dusted, you wait for a night where there's no wind whatsoever, and then go outside and spray them down with a good poly or a good spray lacquer. This will add years to your shelf's appearance, and if anything gets spilled on them, it'll wipe right off. So I like to do this. It also helps the vinyl decals stick. If you have store stickers or you have branding you want to put on. In this case, I do put some branding on the sides of the shelves later, and poly really helps them stick rather than trying to stick it to raw sanded wood. So these are the mastheads and backs of the shelf. It's just cut out a 1/4 inch. I cut these out of 1/4 inch PVC signboard, also called Celtex. And I wash them off really well before I apply a decal. And then these decals I had printed at a local sign shop. And I just have my branding on them for the masthead for these display shelves, and I just adhere each one to the top and then push out the bubbles. And that branding on the side I talked about are these just Oklahoma Shield symbols with my branding rust right above it. Same sign shop made these, printed and cut them out for me on their plotter. And we just put them on each side so people can see the brand name from a long ways off. Makes it really attractive. And then we'll put these backs on here just with some sheet rock screws. And this keeps everything square and keeps your products from coming out the back, and gives you, like I say, a nice branding banner across the top. An opportunity to show off your brand. These look really nice in the store. They hold a lot of my product, so a store that only goes through, a case or two each fill up, this is plenty of space for all that. If you're not going to be on the shelf, it's a good way to get into stores, is to offer them a display like this. Came out pretty well. I think I made 20, 22 of them, something like that. And it was a fun project. Thanks for watching.